Right now, on the surface of every red blood cell in your body, there's a protein your immune system has been trained not to see, a decision made before you were even born, and one that quietly determined how your body would survive pregnancy, transfusion, and infection for the rest of your life. In 1940, Carl Landsteiner and Alexander Wiener injected rabbits with blood from rhesus monkeys and discovered an antigen that would eventually explain why some pregnancies went catastrophically wrong for no visible reason. They called it the Rh factor, and if you've ever filled out a hospital form, donated blood, or sat in a delivery room while a nurse said the words Rh positive like it was a footnote, it wasn't a footnote. It was your ancestors' immune system handing you a passport, and you've been carrying it your entire life without ever reading what's written inside. Here's the thing, roughly 85% of people on Earth are Rh positive, which means this isn't some rare genetic quirk. It's the default, and that's exactly why nobody explains it to you. Nobody sits you down and says, here's what this protein on your red blood cells actually does, because the majority version of anything gets treated as background noise. You only hear about Rh status when something goes wrong, a pregnancy complication, a transfusion reaction, and by then, it sounds like a problem instead of what it actually is, a trait that spread through the human population because, at some point, it helped people survive something. Being Rh positive is so common that it's invisible, and invisibility is a strange kind of privilege. You get the benefit without ever being told you're receiving one. So think about it. What is this protein actually doing while you're not thinking about it at all? The Rh protein sits embedded in the membrane of your red blood cells, and researchers believe it functions as a gas channel, helping transport carbon dioxide and possibly ammonia across the cell membrane. It's not fully settled science, but the leading hypothesis is that Rh proteins help stabilize the red blood cell membrane itself and assist in efficient gas exchange, the literal process of your blood picking up oxygen and dropping off carbon dioxide over and over, 60 seconds an hour, your whole life. And here's what's interesting. Some researchers have proposed that this membrane stability may have offered a subtle resistance advantage against certain parasitic infections in ancestral populations, the kind of pressure that shaped human blood chemistry for thousands of generations before anyone had a name for red blood cells at all. This is still an active area of research, not a settled fact, but it's a serious hypothesis, not folklore. And that's the deep origin, a protein that may have helped your ancestors breathe more efficiently under biological stress, that may have offered a sliver of resistance to threats we can't fully reconstruct anymore, spreading through the population until it became the majority. Your only job at this stage is to understand that common doesn't mean meaningless. It means successful enough to become the rule. Every trait that reaches 85% prevalence in a species did so because, on balance, it won more often than it lost. But here's where the story turns, and here's what nobody tells you at the dinner table. The same protein that may have given your ancestors an edge is the exact same protein capable of triggering one of the strangest immune conflicts in human biology, your own body treating a pregnancy as an invasion. If an Rh-negative mother carries an Rh-positive baby, a baby who inherited that positive status from the father, her immune system can, under the right circumstances, encounter the baby's Rh-positive blood cells, usually during delivery or a placental event, and respond the way it would to any foreign threat. It builds antibodies. The first pregnancy is usually fine because antibody production takes time, but in a second Rh-positive pregnancy, those antibodies are already primed and they can cross the placenta and attack the baby's red blood cells, causing a condition called hemolytic disease of the newborn, HDN, where the baby's red blood cells are destroyed faster than they can be replaced, leading to severe anemia, jaundice, and, in untreated cases, heart failure or death in the womb. This is the hidden cost. This is the biological irony sitting underneath the advantaged majority framing. The Rh-positive trait that likely helped your ancestors survive is the same trait capable of turning a mother's own immune system against her child simply because of a mismatch in this one protein. And if that sounds like a strange thing for your body to decide without asking you, it is. But here's where modern medicine actually closes the loop. In 1968, Rogam, an anti-D immunoglobulin injection, was developed specifically to prevent this. Given to Rh-negative mothers occurs during and after pregnancy, it suppresses the immune response before antibodies can form, essentially intercepting the biological miscommunication before it becomes dangerous. What used to be a leading cause of newborn death in the mid-20th century is now, in countries with access to prenatal care, almost entirely preventable with a single shot. Your only job here is to know your Rh status before pregnancy becomes relevant, because this isn't trivia you look up after the fact. It's information that changes clinical decisions in real time. If this is starting to explain things about pregnancy, immunity, or even your own family history that never made sense, a miscarriage nobody could explain, a sibling born jaundiced, a grandmother who mentioned Rh shots like they were routine, stay, because the part about what this protein is actually defending you against day to day gets stranger. Let's go back inside your bloodstream, away from pregnancy, to what Rh positive status is doing for you on an ordinary Tuesday. Your red blood cells are under constant chemical stress, oxidative stress, from the very process of carrying oxygen, which generates reactive molecules capable of damaging the cell membrane itself. The Rh protein complex appears to play a structural role here, helping maintain membrane integrity and possibly reducing the rate at which red blood cells break down under this stress. Think of it as reinforcement built into the architecture of the cell. Your immune system is running a background program it inherited, quietly stabilizing the very cells responsible for keeping every tissue in your body oxygenated. This isn't dramatic. It's not a headline. It's maintenance work happening trillions of times a day inside you, and it's part of why Rh status isn't cosmetic. It's structural. Now, here's where we need to be honest about what this protein is not doing, because the internet will tell you your blood type determines your personality, your compatibility with romantic partners, even your ideal career, and there's no credible scientific evidence supporting any of it. Blood type personality theory originated in 1930s Japan as pop psychology, not biology, and decades of research have failed to find a reliable link between ABO or Rh status and personality traits. What the real science does show is something more interesting, if less mystical. Population geneticists use Rh distribution to trace ancient migration patterns. Rh negative frequency, for example, is notably higher in Basque populations in Spain and France, a genetic clue researchers have used to study one of Europe's oldest and most isolated lineages. That's the real story, not horoscope logic, but a molecular fingerprint of where your ancestors moved and when. And this brings us to right now, to why this 100-year-old discovery still runs modern hospitals. Rh compatibility is checked before every single blood transfusion, because giving Rh positive blood to an Rh negative recipient who has developed antibodies can trigger a serious, potentially fatal immune reaction. Organ transplant matching considers it too. Blood banks maintain donor registries specifically organized around Rh status, and O-negative Rh negative combined with type O is called the universal donor, precisely because it can be given to patients of any Rh status in an emergency, when there isn't time to test compatibility first. And here's the part that makes this personal rather than abstract. O-negative donors make up roughly 7% of the population, yet they're called on to cover a disproportionate share of trauma and emergency transfusions, which is exactly why blood banks list it as a permanent, year-round shortage category rather than an occasional one. Your only job, practically speaking, is to know your own type, Rh positive or negative, the same way you'd know an allergy. Because in an emergency room, that single piece of information can shape a transfusion decision before a doctor even has time to explain why it matters. So here's what this actually adds up to. You are, statistically, part of the biological majority, carrying a protein your ancestors' immune systems selected for, likely because it helped stabilize red blood cells and improve gas exchange under pressures we're still working to fully understand. That same trait carries a real, documented cost in the context of pregnancy, one that medicine has learned to manage but never fully erase, and it continues, quietly, to shape transfusion medicine, organ compatibility, and emergency care every single day, whether or not you've ever thought about it. Being Rh positive was never neutral. It was a strategy, and like every survival strategy your body has ever run, it came with trade-offs your ancestors accepted so that you could be here to read this. If you know your blood blood type, drop it in the comments. And if anyone in your family has ever mentioned an RH complication, a shot during pregnancy, or a mismatch nobody explained at the time, tell that story too. Chances are, someone in your bloodline already lived the part of this video you just learned. And if this is the kind of thing you want more of, your own body decoded, one hidden mechanism at a time, subscribe, because next time it's a different protein your ancestors left running in the background without asking you first.